Hey there. This is Coworking with Iris, where we talk about coworking and community. This is episode 20, and I will be speaking today with Benjamin Diet of Grind in New York and Chicago. And I first met Benjamin about 4 or 5 years ago, I think, at the most fun, juicy night I've ever had, actually, at the Global Coworking on Conference in Austin, Texas.
That's
And
God, that was like yeah, that was 2012, I guess, wasn't it? Yeah.
yeah, I was 7 months pregnant with my son at the time. And Benjamin has just been a lovely friend and fixture in the co-working world for me ever since then. And I've really enjoyed Benjamin's unique perspective on community and on workplace strategies from the legal perspective, given that Benjamin spent quite a bit of time before founding Grind in the real estate legal world. So, we're going to talk today about his latest venture, which is a partnership with Verizon. And I'm really curious to hear what Benjamin has to say about how this partnership is going. I'll just let you know that I'm visiting family right now, and where I'm visiting, there's no co working space. So, I'm in a local cowboy cafe. There's quite a bit of activity around me. So I'll be going on mute. And so I do apologize, though, if there's background noise during this recording. Thanks for your patience with that. Good morning, Benjamin, and
Well, good,
welcome.
well, good morning. I think I want to ask the first question.
Okay.
If this is episode 20, I want to know why I was in episode number one.
I think you were really, really busy when I launched this. You were really, really busy launching your latest effort.
Okay, I'll accept that.
But as soon as the word got out that you guys were doing what you're doing, I sent you that email. Well, thanks so much for joining. And let's start off with you telling us about your co-working story. How did you get started in co-working?
Oh, see, I started out as a child. It's kind of a basic story almost. I was a commercial real estate lawyer most of my life, and when I was kind of done with that part, and after being a big firm lawyer, I ran a small real estate investment company for a little while, 8 years. um, then I ended up as an entrepreneur, and I was dipping my toe in some interesting projects that came my way, and I was still consulting for a lot of my old legal clients and people I knew. And I was also trying out things that I was just interested in. I mean, at one point, first, I'm kind of a amateur half-trained chef, and I always wanted to own a restaurant. So I opened a restaurant um, because it was something I wanted to do before I died. Um, Quickly found out it's something I never want to do again, but, but it was fun. It was fun while it lasted. Um, but at one point, I was working on a bunch of projects, and sometimes when I work from home a lot, and but if I had a lot of work piled up, sometimes I'd rent an executive office suite and just go and hunker down, for 6 months or a year or whatever it is. And I was actually in a space at that point, and it wasn't a very nice space. I had a windowless office at the end of some hallway, and the place was not really kept up very well. Bad carpeting, needed paint everywhere. And I had some simple, basic problem. I can't even remember what it is now. And I went to the office staff and asked them to help me, and they like couldn't care less. And I looked around, and every office was full. The place was a nightmare, and I just said, with a little sort of hospitality and design and just general caring for human beings, there could be a business here. I'd never even heard of co-working at that point. This is like 2008, 2009. Never heard of it. I said, but this business center thing, can be improved on. And I started just, putting together plans and researching, and I went to a few smart friends I knew. One who was an old friend of mine, really smart guy, and I all along in my life I've always like shared ideas with him and bounced ideas off of him and gotten his help. And for the first time, he basically got back to me and said, "You know what? I like this idea. This is interesting. Maybe I'll do this with you." um, and I'll tell you, we started pulling together a plan for Grind, and that's how it was born. I mean, he was a really smart business guy. I was a real estate guy, and I needed a place to work, so we built one.
Wow. I love that story, Benjamin. And I also find it fascinating that you worked at a space that was pretty much all offices, all little cubicles, and then you opened a co-working space with no offices, right? Your first Grind was all open. You had no team rooms.
We had no offices. It was completely open plan collaborative workspace. And that's because one of the things I was missing in my work life was human contact and the ability. Look, yeah, I consider myself a smart guy, but I also consider myself someone who doesn't know everything. And if I don't know everything, I need people around me who know something other than what I know. And that's what drove the original Grind design, which is walls. What the hell do we need walls for?
Yeah, yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Well, we learned why we needed walls later. But
Right. As did many in the early co-working movement, yes. So you recently created a partnership with Verizon. So take us back a little. How did this come about? Oh, I think you might be muted, Benjamin. I'm going to unmute you there.
Sorry, there we
That's
go.
okay.
um, well, I'll tell you, if the idea was inside Verizon, was sort of came out of the Verizon real estate group. Um, Verizon is probably the largest private owner of real estate in the country. They own something like 150 million square feet of space, and a lot of it was to hold their systems and technology. And over the decades, what they used to need 100,000 square feet for, switching equipment, et cetera, all that stuff has been shrunk down to, half that size, if not less. So they have millions of square feet of fallow real estate. And they were trying to figure out what to do with it. Do they sell it? Do they repurpose it somehow? And one of the smaller bits of their plan was to take some of the real estate, turn it into co-working spaces. So the real estate group was out talking to a lot of people, and we spent a lot of time with them. And at one point suggested that they go to Juicy, the Global Co-working Unconference Conference, and really see what the industry is about. Meet a lot of the operators and the different perspectives that exist inside of co-working. And that would help formulate their plans and ideas, and rather than talking to just us or whoever else they were talking to. So it was Kansas City, 2013, I guess. We brought Verizon to Juicy.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent a lot of time introducing them around to everybody. And it kind of opened their eyes, but interestingly enough, only made them more determined to embark on a project like this.
Mm-hmm.
As happens with large corporations, lots of time passed, and they boiled it down to about 4 or 5 co-working operators that they were really interested in trying this with. And at the end of the day, when all dust cleared, we were the ones that they decided to do it with. Then lots more time passed as we, worked on contract points and how actual partnership would be structured. And, not surprisingly, it was very different in the end than it started out in the beginning, given, what Grind is and how it operates and what Verizon is and how it operates. But we were able to come together and come up with a platform that we thought would be good for both of us. And we signed up a deal at the end of last summer 2015. And we started designing and building a space, which we completed in March of this year, 2016, and opened it to much fanfare.
Tell us about this fanfare. I can imagine, Grind has gotten a fair amount of press over the years, but I can imagine the type of press that you must have received through this type of a collaborative relationship.
Well, we did our usual. We got it out there through our social media channels and through our own network and community. And, we had an interesting party. We did a really interesting launch. We have a quarterly lecture series called Rethink, where we bring different thought leaders from everywhere. And we bring them into Grind so our members can see what's going on in the rest of the world. And we use the Rethink platform as our launch platform for that space. We did a sort of Rethink Arts, and we brought in really cool sculptors and muralists and some really interesting people who did presentations during the course of the evening. It was a lot of fun, actually.
That's fun that you used the launch party to do that. So you had some press, you opened to much fanfare. Tell us about the building that you're in. What was, I'd love to hear how the build out might have been different because you were operating in an existing building. What is the space, the physical space itself like? And then, what did you have to do differently with this corporate partnership that you had?
I'll tell you, the space was a challenge because it had never been occupied by humans before. It was a piece of Verizon real estate that used to be a switching floor, and the switching equipment, has shrunk to half its size. So it was just lying fallow, but it also was never built out to contain humans, so it didn't meet any of the code requirements. So it was actually kind of a heavy lift to bring the space up to snuff before we could even start building it out as a co-working space. And you layer on top of that the building is their old headquarters, which is in Lower Manhattan. It's right next to the World Trade Center. It's the building north of the World Trade Center. So the building was severely damaged in 9/11. And Verizon spent years and years rebuilding it and fixing it. In fact, the space we occupy was pretty central to the damaged part of the building. And they sort of moved heaven and earth to make it work. And we got the space finished in March. We opened, and we had a community growing very quickly. And unfortunately, 3 weeks after we opened, Verizon went on strike. This year it was all in the news. It was the biggest union strike in the United States, and I had a picket line of angry union workers outside the building for 2 months.
Wow. How was that? I mean, how did you navigate that with your members, brand new members?
Let's just say it was a challenge. And the members who had signed up and come into the space were absolutely wonderful and lovely. And it was difficult to attract new members during that period because no one wanted to cross the picket line to go see a co-working space. But on the Verizon side, the co-working team at Verizon are really fantastic. They're really smart, passionate people who love this project and really want it to succeed. And they were with us every step of the way, and that made a huge difference. Um, and we got through it. We got through it.
True. So what does this partnership look like now? Are you opening, spaces everywhere with Verizon? Do I get to like walk into the local downtown Santa Cruz Verizon store and co-work with other grindists? How does this work?
Oh, well, I wish, but but no. First and foremost, and the basis of our arrangement with Verizon is that this is the grind. It's called Grind, powered by Verizon. It looks like a grind when you walk in. You know that you're in grind, but at the same time, every grind location is a little different, and the community is a little different. Um, it's a standalone business that's designed to connect Verizon with their clients' work lives. A lot of our members have Verizon phones, but that's more of a personal home thing. People have Verizon TV and cable service, but so Verizon is well embedded in people's personal lives. But this is a small, part of a larger effort to get connected to their work life and exposed. But on the flip side of that coin, the partnership is designed to expose Verizon to new technologies that are being explored and developed by Grind members. Because, as you know, Verizon is in the middle of a big sort of um, brand shift from being known as the big bad telephone company to being known as sort of a cool, nimble, smart, intelligent technology company.
Right.
And so positioning themselves next to companies like Grind, even though Grind is tiny, um, you know, helps with that transition. But it also helps drive other parts of their business. I mean, if we can find one Grind member a year that's doing something that can sort of feed another part of the Verizon business, I mean that's a huge win for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sort of what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, it's really powerful to have um, the people who are developing technology and perhaps those who are developing, software that we use or hardware that we use, to sit with the users and to have just casual conversations that happen, but to be able to observe those moments that you really can't get in a focus group, I think, where somebody's clash with their technology affects their work and their productivity. And so, the power of what you're building there with Verizon, I think, is obviously very, very heavy on the Verizon side. How do you feel that this benefits the members as well?
Well, uh, well, in one aspect, it remains to be seen because it's still a nascent community. But
Mm-hmm.
Verizon is getting more and more involved with the community every day. I mean, we have sort of Verizon tech teams, and what I mean by that is we have tech companies sort of involved with, supported by Verizon in some of our other spaces, and the Verizon um, sort of innovation groups. I think that's the best way to describe them because there are many of them. um, are involved in this location. They run events there. They support other events. They support member events. I mean, one of my members just did a sort of female tech hackathon at the space, and one of the Verizon innovation groups was one of her sponsors and very involved in the production of the event. So it's growing every day, and it will be interesting to see what directions it takes. I wouldn't even pretend to predict which way it's going to go, but so far it's been pretty cool.
So then, do you have Verizon teams? I think you mentioned you have them in your other communities. So do you have basically, are these embedded teams, or is it just anybody from Verizon is able to go work at any grind space at this point if they want to co-work rather than be located in the headquarters?
Well, actually, no, we don't have any Verizon employees in our space. These
Uh-huh.
are startups, companies that exist that are being supported by Verizon in various ways, and we don't place them at the Grind Verizon space, at least not for now. I mean, we kind of want the experiment to be a little more clean than that. So while we support and host those teams at other locations, we try to steer them away from the Grind Verizon space. We want that community to sort of get settled on its own and grow organically, because we think that's the best way for a community to be born. And once we feel comfortable that that process is kind of complete, then we certainly can do other things with it. But for the moment, we would rather see any sort of Verizon connected teams at one of our other locations.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And how many members does this new space hold?
It's sort of designed to, have about 120 people there each
Uh-huh.
day
Uh-huh.
in various forms, from daily, monthly, team run people, the usual grind hodgepodge.
And are grindists from any location able to go to any other location? And this is just another grind location, as you mentioned.
Yeah, it really is another grind location that's powered by Verizon. And all of our members, including the members from this space, because they are just simply grind members, can use any space with some limitations and within reason. Um, I mean, for our purposes, every grind member is assigned a location so we can track their usage and the revenue. But if they're based out of Grind Verizon and they need to use our Times Square location, it's available to them. If they have a meeting uptown or whatever it is, or if they have a meeting in Chicago and they need to use our Chicago location for a few days, they're welcome to go.
Great. So I'm curious, what have been some of the bigger challenges in developing this partnership that you can speak about? I'm guessing that you're under NDA for a fair amount of that, but what are some of the things that you didn't necessarily expect in sort of trying to merge or have a collaboration between what I'm assuming are two very different cultures, Grind being a startup and startups operating in a much more nimble way, but also in a resource-strapped way. Verizon, being a large company, perhaps with a lot more resources at its fingertips, but also a lot of oversight and a lot of time to make sure that things are according to the corporate guidelines.
Well, it's an interesting question, one we get all the time. I think the best way to answer it is, the challenges are really just based in the whole David Goliath nature of the relationship. Verizon is huge and Grind is tiny, and we speak different languages and we move differently, we operate differently.
Right.
Sometimes that communication is fluid and easy, and sometimes we actually need a translator.
Mm-hmm. Who translates for you?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, we're lucky in the fact that the Verizon Coworking team is really smart and passionate and really into this project, and that's just a good base to work with. But sometimes it's a challenge. I mean, we're a small startup and we're used to the necessity of making decisions quickly and on the fly, and that's not how a large corporation works.
Not at all. That's not at all how they work. Well, I'm curious also, what's your prediction on the future for this type of collaborative partnership? What do you think? Take out your crystal ball, Benjamin, and tell us what you think.
Well, that's a tough question, because it's really a question about where do I think the future of coworking is going? And I can't predict the future. I've seen so much rapid, crazy change in the coworking world in the last 5 years that I couldn't even begin to tell you what the future is going to look like. I can tell you about some of the forces we're reckoning with right now. um, I mean, coworking started as a grassroots solopreneur movement, really. Um, in general, as coworking has spread and expanded, the needs requirements of our members and sort of the modern worker in general has changed dramatically. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of it's driven by the fact that um, more sort of middle corporate people have come into the co-working world, and they come with different needs. Um, the corporate world has adopted a lot of the co-working practices internally because they are trying to attract new younger talent and retain new younger talent, and they're trying to learn to drive innovation from within. And the needs of the people that they need to do those things don't revolve around sitting in the cubicle. So they want different, more dynamic, more open workspaces um, that really can help with collaboration and help with innovation. Most large corporations right now are all in the middle of dramatically changing their internal workspaces. But a lot of that change is involves pushing some of their people and workers to external workplaces, be it co-working spaces, be it home, be it whatever it is. But they're being driven to places like Grind. Um, we call them detachable teams. We have we have plenty of members who are sort of small bands of departments from large corporations because they don't want to work at the headquarters yet, and because they want more collaborative, innovative workspaces where they can get ideas and motivation and inspiration from other people doing other things in other industries around them. And they end up in places like Ryan to get those needs met.
And how do you see that shaping, the culture of a space? I mean, I see that in San Francisco a lot. I see both detachable teams, as you call them, and I also see a lot of startup teams coming into co-working spaces. And teams tend to be more insular. Not always, but they do tend to be more insular or internally focused. So how do you see this shift towards these detachable teams filling up spaces affecting or guiding the culture of the sort of more open and collaborative spaces that we've had traditionally in co-working?
It's certainly changed the nature of our communities dramatically, and I don't mean for better or for worse. I'm not sure. It's just different. I mean, our original space was completely open plan, collaborative workspaces. We had no offices. We had 2 conference rooms, and everybody worked in a big room. Our latest space is 4 times the size of that one, and is about 50% offices, and the rest is open space. And we have everything from solo entrepreneurs working in the open space to detachable teams working in one of their offices, from small teams to large teams. I think our largest team in that space might be 40 people. But both of those sort of segments like the ability to interact and learn something from each other. Mm-hmm. So it's important to have a range of product offering and amenities for these people to not only help them expand their own business, but to help them sort of interact and collaborate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So really, it's a potential plus for the community.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's more talent, more resources available to collaborate with, and I think we could all learn a little bit from each other. Keep moving towards balance and being centrally focused.
Exactly. In our new space, we have a meditation room. Never thought 6 years ago when we started Grind that we'd have a meditation room.
Yeah, you guys have definitely changed. It's been fun to watch as you open one space after another space after another space. Watch you try the different types of ideas that you've had as you learn and grow. And yeah, interested to hear that first space was completely open and now 50% office space.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Well, Benjamin, what's next for you?
Well, I'll tell you, right now, given the rapid change of the industry and what we've seen over the last 5 years, uh, we're trying to take a breath and look inside and to look at our existing spaces and try to enhance our product offering and sort of rethink the hospitality arm of what we do and how we can do that better. Um, I mean, right now we're trying to be the best that we can be and be better at what we're doing.
Love it. Wonderful. Well, thanks so much for being here with us today. It's always fun to talk to you, and what a fascinating story and a fascinating journey you're on. We'll have to have you back again sometime maybe next year.
Oh,
And
yeah,
hear how it's going.
maybe I'll be session number 40.
Yes. Thanks, Benjamin.
Okay, thank you, Iris.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And again, my apologies about the audio behind me. How very uncoworking of me. You can check out other episodes and also subscribe to our podcast at coworkingwithiris.co. Keep up doing the great work that you're doing, changing the world one member at a time. Talk to you soon.
Okay, bye-bye.